Demonstrations here are at a low pitch that does not reflect the tensions inside this building. Keir Starmer, who left his party conference early to be here, spoke to the United Nations Security Council, calling for urgent action.
We need an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Lebanese Hezbollah and the implementation of a political plan which allows Israeli and Lebanese civilians to return to their homes to live in peace and security.
As Russia's deputy UN representative looked down at his papers, Keir Starmer also attacked Moscow's ruthless conduct in Ukraine.
I wonder how Russia can show its face in this building. 600,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded in this war. And for what? The UN Charter, which they sit here to uphold, speaks of human dignity, not treating your own citizens as bits of meat to fling into the grinder.
Keir Starmer's meeting Ukraine's President Zelensky here and expects to hear directly his plan to end the war, its viability, a pivotal moment. President Zelensky was appealing to the world not to forget his conflict as attention turns to the Middle East.
I want peace for my people, real peace and just peace. And I'm asking for your support from all nations of the world. We do not divide the world. I ask the same of you, do not divide the world. Be united nations. And that will bring us peace.
At the United Nations, a rare sighting of Sue Gray, Keir Starmer's chief of staff, with him on this trip, and much mentioned in the chat at Labour Party conference, which he left and flew over last night. Today, in his absence, a motion attacking his withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance from millions of pensioners was passed. A reminder of the challenges that face him back home, even as he addresses escalating tensions abroad. When I caught up with Keir Starmer in New York, I started by asking him about how concerned he was with the situation in Lebanon.
I'm very worried about the escalation and calling for all parties to step back from the brink to de-escalate. We need a ceasefire so this can be sorted out diplomatically. But I have a very important message for British nationals in Lebanon, which is the time to leave is now. The contingency plans are being ramped up, but don't wait for those. There are still commercial flights. It's very important that they hear my message, which is to leave and to leave immediately.
Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu has any idea where this ends? Any notion of that?
Well, look, I think I am concerned about the escalation in Lebanon. It's very close to the brink now, and I think all parties need to pull back. There needs to be a ceasefire because in the end, this is only going to be solved by political means. So this is the time, clearly the time, for de-escalation.
But Netanyahu, do you think he has any idea where it ends?
Well, look, I mean, he will have his own objectives, but looking at it from where I'm looking at it, I'm very concerned about the escalation.
You could have on your desk quite soon a request from the International Criminal Court to support an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. What would you do if it landed there?
Well, the court hasn't come to a decision yet.
So you don't rule out
therefore, I'm not going to
it.
speculate. Look, no decision's been made. It's a matter, obviously, for the court, so I'm not going to get ahead of that and speculate. The court will take its decision in due course.
You've come here straight from Liverpool, from your party conference, and at that conference, they've just defeated the measures you put forward on the winter fuel allowance, whipping it away from millions of people. Presumably it's full steam ahead despite that.
Well, firstly, I do understand how, colleagues in the Labour movement feel about this. This is clearly a difficult decision.
But it's full steam ahead.
But a motion at conference doesn't dictate government policy. It's a difficult decision taken because the last government left a £22 billion black hole. I want to ask you about that, because
you will have been
we've had to take a tough decision.
You'll have been looking at a whole list of options that you can take in order to fill that black hole, but you chose this one. And that puzzles a lot of people who are trying to understand what you as Prime Minister, what your government's going to be like. And they're wondering, because if there was full take-up of pensioner credit, it would save no money whatsoever. it'll save quite a bit less than has been advertised because there will be at least some additional take-up of pensioner credit. Some people think it was a sort of sacrificial lamb to try and assuage concerns that the Labour Party splashes the cash, and that's why it was out there for so long as an identifying policy, the biggest, boldest, new, unexpected policy we associate your government with.
Well, let me take that head on, because I do think it's an important point and challenge to put to me. First thing is, £22 billion is a huge amount of money to find in 1 year. This is the black hole. The money they left off the books, didn't declare to the country. That has to be done, and it has to be done this year. So there's no easy choice within that.
But this one, you talked about it at length yesterday, but this specific one, the motive.
Just come to that. So there's no easy choices. I don't think for public services we can take more money out of them. They're already on their knees, so it's difficult choices. But the purpose behind this and the reason that we've done this is to stabilise the economy.
Let me ask another question then to try and understand your government. Is there more scope to borrow to invest than maybe you thought when you were campaigning in the election? Because it wasn't one of your messages in the election, but it sounded from Rachel Reeves' speech as though you have discovered, if not a magic wand, maybe a conjuring trick.
Well, I mean, firstly, I think it's important to distinguish day-to-day spend, which is the year-to-year spend and balance, which the 22 billion is part of, and then the longer-term point you put to me about borrow to invest.
And you might have found a trick.
Well, look, I'm not going to get ahead of the budget, but I've always and long believed in borrowing to invest. I think it's important to grow the economy.
So you might be borrowing more than you said in the election.
Our number one mission is to grow the economy, to make sure that by growing the economy, everybody is better off, living standards go up. That's what I'm going to be judged on at the end of this term in government, and I know that. And therefore, we look to measures to grow the economy.
Can I ask you another one about how you run things? You spoke to us to Channel 4 News during the election about how you ran the CPS. You were a sort of presiding chairman there in terms of day-to-day organisation. There was a chief executive who actually ran the organisation. Is government a bit like that at the moment? Because some of your colleagues are wondering, is it actually being run by Sue Gray? Is it being run by the Treasury? Is that your template?
Look, the way we do it is, as you would expect, through strong cabinet decisions. I'll openly admit the Chancellor and I are very close. We think together, we have got a shared strategy and approach, and therefore the fact that there's nothing between the Chancellor and the Prime Minister shouldn't become a surprise. That's how we've been operating for a number of years. But it is a very good thing for the country, by the way. We've had plenty of examples of chancellors going in one direction, prime ministers going in another direction.
Some of your cabinet...
It usually ends pretty sadly.
Some people in your cabinet aren't sure what we're seeing is a very good thing at the moment. They're a bit worried. They think this government isn't functioning properly and something's not right. And that's why I ask you about who's really running the show.
I think it is a very good thing that the Chancellor and Prime Minister are in lockstep.
Sue Gray was the other part of my question.
Well, the Chancellor and the Prime Minister are making the key decisions in relation to the budget, as you would expect. We're aligned, but we are, nobody's hiding this, we are close, we think alike. The strategy for winning the election was a shared strategy, and the strategy for driving economic growth is a shared strategy. It is a good thing to have a Prime Minister and Chancellor who think alike, lockstep, working together.
You've spoken a lot about the whole issue about freebies and clothes, maybe later than some people in your own party would have liked, but you've got there and you've said what you've said. But I wanted to ask you just one other question about that. When party donors, people who wish the party well, want to give money to the party, the conventional route is to give it to the party, not lean over and stuff a few £1,000 in the pocket, the top pocket of people who are about to be cabinet ministers. I mean, that's a great way of making sure that your phone calls are always answered. Did alarm bells ring when Wahid Ali chose that approach in your head?
I think your characterisation isn't entirely accurate.
It's odd, though, isn't it?
People donate in different ways. Sometimes they give to the party itself. Sometimes they give it to a particular
but this is a bit
member of Parliament.
This way is a bit
sometimes
rum,
they give it to a cabinet member. Sometimes it's for support in a particular office. It can be for any number of things. The important thing is that it's declared. And yes, there were plenty of people before the election who desperately wanted a Labour government and wanted to donate towards that end, and that was their driving motivation. And of course, we have secured now a mandate for change, and I go to work every day to get on with the work of change.
Prime Minister, thank you.
Thank you.